Before we go to create our employee tester class, I want to add in one more helper method that's very useful when you're working with objects, and that is called a toString method. So I'm going to go down to the bottom of my employee class. I'm outside of the curly bracket for the work anniversary method, but I'm inside of the closing curly bracket for the class, and I'm going to insert a toString method. Eclipse will automatically create this method for you. If you go under Source, Generate toString, and pick all your fields, select to insert it after work anniversary and click OK. This is going to allow us to see what's in each instance variable for the specific object. So it's very useful inside of our tester class. It allows us to see what's been put into each of our values inside of our instance variables. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to save this class, make sure the star disappears, and now I'm going to go create a new class. Make sure that I'm still inside my employee source folder, go to our C+, and I'm going to call this new class employee tester. And this time I am going to create a public static void main. Inside of my employee tester class, I'm going to create two employees. My first employee is going to use my first constructor that didn't take any arguments whenever it was created. And then my second employee is going to use my second constructor that sets all of the values inside the employee ID, first name, last name, email, and hire date whenever it's created. We'll use the toString method on both of those so that you can see what's inside of the specific values or the specific variables as we're creating them. And then we'll also use our two helper methods, our years employed and our work anniversary, just so you can see those in action as well. To create a new employee, I'm going to use the keyword employee, followed by the name that I'd like to refer to this employee as in the employer tester. I'm going to call this one Oliver, and I'll use the keyword new followed by the word employee again and two parentheses and our semicolon. So this has created a new employee using our employee constructor. Now right away I'm going to use my toString method so that you can see what's set in employee by default. So I'll use my sysout and I'll sysout Oliver toString. When I run this down here in the console, you'll see I have a new employee. The employee ID is null, the first name is null, the last name null, the email is set to no email assigned, and the hire date is set to null. So even though I've called this employee Oliver, I haven't set the name or the last name. This is just how I'm referring to this Oliver object inside of my employee tester class. It is using the default constructor. I can see that because in the default constructor, I changed no email assigned to be set automatically when a new employee using no parameters is passed through. So how would I go about setting the first name and setting the last name? I use the employee object name, and I use the dot, and then I call the method. So I'll use set first name, and I'll set the first name to be Oliver, and I'll set the last name, so now whenever I run this, you'll notice a difference in the toString. You'll see that the first name is now set to Oliver, the last name is set to Jones, and the email is still set to not assigned. Let's set an hire date for Oliver. Since this uses my local date, I have to put in a keyword of local date dot of, and then I'm able to fill in the year. We'll put 2002 month dot April and change the date to be the 7th. So now whenever I run this, I can see the change in the hire date shows up as 2002-04-07. Let's practice using our methods to find the work anniversary and how long the employee has been employed. I'm going to capture the years employed inside of an integer called years because I know that that method returns the value of an int. This is all I have to type, and then I'll sys out the value in years. I can see it goes out there, checks Oliver, it grabs his hire date, and we find out it's 13 years from 2002. That's how many years he's been employed, so for 13 years. Let's do the same thing with the work anniversary. I know it's going to return a string. And this will get Oliver's work anniversary. There it is, April 7th, except instead of 2002, it says 2015, so it's pulling the current year. Let's create a second employee that uses our constructor that sets all the values automatically. Keyword employee, and then I have to give my object a name. And this time I'm going to pass in values. So the first value I have to pass in from my constructor is the ID. Then the first name, last name, or we got to set email, followed by the hire date. I use the keyword local date of, and we'll set it for 2005, and then my semicolon at the end, of course. So right away, let's take Cameron to string so that you can see what's in the different variables being set. Go ahead and run it. So here's Cameron. Right away, we've got our employee ID set, our first name, last name, email address, and our hire date. Let's run the toString, or not the toString method. Let's run the years employed and the work anniversary. So here is where I capture my input, my return statement back from the years employed method stored in an integer, and I'm printing it out and adding the word years employed at the end. Here I'm calling work anniversary. I know that returns a string. I'm going to store that in CA, and then I'm printing out CA. So here it is down here at the bottom, 10 years employed. January 4th, 2015 would be the work anniversary for this year. Now what would happen? I'm going to jump back up here. You know that I've set my employee to have all this information in it by default, but let's say that Cameron got married and changed his last name. I can use my setter methods inside of my main class as well. So I can say Cameron.set last name to be, what is it, Smith right now. We'll turn it to Johnson. So you can see down here it's currently Smith. Let's run this again, and you'll see using that set last name allows me to set the last name, and now it's changed to Johnson. So even though it's originally set to Smith, I can use the set last name to get information out, or to put information back into our instance variables. I can also use my getters to get information out of the instance variables too inside my main class. I can use the get email. I know that this is going to return a string. Instead of capturing it, I'm just going to system print line it so we can see it inside of the main method. So here's my Cameron toString. Then I'm just going to get his email using get email and years employed in the work anniversary. So if I look down here now, see here's my toString that contains all the information about what's inside each instance variable. Here I've pulled out just the toString, or just the get email, and then you can see the number of years employed and the work anniversary. So our employer tester class is what's actually running here. This is what the Java virtual machine is looking for whenever it's running, and this is where it starts, and we create our employee objects in there. We give them unique names, we set the values for them, and then we can use our different instance methods or helper methods to get information into and out of the class information for each object.